Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of the live chat. I think we're live. I think we're rocking. I literally just finished lifting weights about 2 minutes ago. So sorry for the awkward start to chat, but I literally just finished lifting weights. So I got a protein shake right here, getting worked up, getting ready to go. How's everyone doing? Hope you're all doing good. It is so good to see you. My ear infection has rapidly gotten better, thank goodness. I had a brutal weekend this last weekend, y'all. I was in so much pain, had a horrible ear infection. That is gone. That is feeling so much better, everyone. So it's so great to see you. Welcome to the live chat, everyone. It's great to be back. My favorite time of the week. So for anyone that is new to my live chat, basically the way this works, you drop your comments, you drop your questions down into chat, and I get to as many questions as possible. Now there is two ways to do that. First of all, there is, of course, just the free method. Literally all you do, you type a question, you hit it into chat, and I get to as many free questions as possible. However, if you want to guarantee 100% that I get to your question today, the method to do that is going to be the super chat option. You just type a donation, type your question, and then it will notify me that a super chat has dropped, and I get to super chats first and foremost. They get priority because people pay for those questions, but don't feel obligated at all to do that. Like I said, I get to as many free questions as possible, but the donations do help the channel, everyone. So what can we talk about today? There is a lot, right? There is a whole bunch of big topics, seemingly almost just like every week in the video game industry. The biggest one, the one that's my thumbnail, of course, Nintendo just came out with their financial results for the holiday season, right? That ended at the end of December. We have some crazy numbers coming out of that, right? We've got Switch has basically hit 80 million units shipped. It has already outsold the 3DS lifetime. That is right. It has surpassed the 3DS in less than 4 years. That is astounding. So Switch sales are astronomical. They're through the roof. Software sales are completely insane. Animal Crossing New Horizons becomes the first exclusive game ever to sell over 30 million units in a calendar year, y'all. 31 million units in basically 9 months, right? Because that game came out in March. That is unbelievable for Animal Crossing. There's a whole bunch of other software sales, right? Mario Kart 8 Deluxe is also over 30 million. I'm going to give you the full top 10 best-selling Switch games in just a second. Some of the other top topics we can talk about, of course, MLB The Show 21 is going multi-platform, right? We got that announcement back in 2019 that the franchise was going to go multi-plat, and they said as soon as 2021, but we didn't really know the exact details, which consoles are going to get it. You know, it just said starting in 2021. We now have some updates, right? No PC version and no Switch version this year, but it is coming to Xbox. Mass Effect Legendary Edition, we just got an announced date on that. It's going to be May 14th, so we can talk about Mass Effect. And of course, there was that crazy Stadia news yesterday. Stadia, Google Stadia, they are closing all their internal studios. They're shutting them all down. Stadia, the service, is still going to exist, for the future for now, right? But don't count on any games developed exclusively for that by Google Stadia themselves, right? If there is going to be any exclusive stuff, it's basically going to be them paying for other studios to make games for them because they shut down their own studios. So start dropping those questions, everyone. Drop all those questions into chat. I'm already seeing 2 super chats dropped. So I'm going to hit those super chats first, and then we're going to go into free questions. Give me 1 sec. This is going to be really gross, but I have to chug this protein shake really quick. I got to get this protein in me after my workout sesh. So let me hit this really quick, and then I'm going to get on those questions. Sorry for the awkward start. Like I said, I finished lifting weights like 2 minutes before the start. So let me chug this really quick. Give me 2 secs. All right, I'm back. All right, I am back. Let's get to chatting, everyone. All right, Timmer72299 with the first super chat as usual, basically, right? Timmer, always so supportive, always so awesome. Great to see Timmer. With the 2 super chat, just saying keep up the great work. Thank you so much, Timmer. You keep up the great work as well. You keep being awesome, man. Dropping all kinds of interesting info over on Twitter. So thank you for that super chat. CA Knight with a 5 super chat saying, no question for me. I just enjoy watching these live chats and wanted to support the channel. Pick a free question. CA Knight, that is incredibly kind of you. I love doing these live chats. They're literally my favorite thing that I do. So thank you for that donation. Thank you for being a supporter of the channel. And yeah, we're going to keep this rocking for a long time, y'all. This is literally my favorite thing. All right, Killian Butler with a 5 super chat saying, hey, Benji, no question for me at the moment. Just wanted to say, hope you're doing good and feeling better. Just another kind comment with a super chat. Thank you so much, everyone. I'm feeling great. I'm feeling really, really good. Like I said, this past weekend was rough, y'all. My ear infection was brutal, but I am so much better now. So thank you, everyone. All right, super chats are cleared. I'm going to start hitting those free questions. Oh, wait, let me give you that top 10 really quick. I said I was going to do that. So for anyone that hasn't seen it, and then I'm going to hit the free questions. Sorry, I'm all over the place today. All right, so the top 10 best-selling Switch games published by Nintendo are as follows. Mario Kart 8 Deluxe is at 33.4 million. Animal Crossing New Horizons at 31.18 million. Super Smash Bros. Ultimate at 22.85 million. The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild at 21.45 million. Pokemon Sword and Shield at 20.35 million. Super Mario Odyssey at 20.23 million. Super Mario Party at 13.82 million. Let's Go Pikachu and Let's Go Eevee at 13 million even. Splatoon 2 at 11.9 million, and New Super Mario Bros. U Deluxe at 9.82 million. And then the exact number for Switch shipments right now sits at 79.87 million. So basically 80 million, right? I mean, it's literally barely below it. So essentially 80 million. All right, now let's get to your free questions. KH, hey Benji, hope you are doing fine, doing great. Do you think Ring Fit Adventure will sell more than Final Fantasy VII Remake on all platforms combined? Also, Mario Kart 8 Deluxe and Animal Crossing New Horizons will each go above 40 million on a single system without price drops. Crazy. So yes, 2 things here, KH. Ring Fit Adventure is definitely outpacing Final Fantasy VII Remake in terms of it looks like as of now, it is probably going to outsell Final Fantasy VII Remake, right? Ring Fit's legs are definitely the better of the two, no doubt about that. The big question, though, here, KH, is going to be how does Final Fantasy VII Remake perform when it hits PC and whenever it hits Xbox, right? Because that is going to happen at some point. Sony paid for exclusivity, but if you look at the box, right, the box itself for Final Fantasy VII Remake says that that's only good until April of 2021, right? They basically paid for a year. So at some point after April, that game can go to Xbox and it can go to PC. So it's a little tough because we just don't know how at all they're going to perform on those platforms. My guess is that it wouldn't be like a giant seller on Xbox, right? Maybe best case scenario would be 1 million units on Xbox, right? I don't think that's actually impossible that it could do 1 million on Xbox, but doing much over that would probably be a long shot, right? I don't expect it to sell like, for example, it sold over 5 million on PlayStation. Thinking that on Xbox it's going to do like 3-4 million seems very unlikely, considering Final Fantasy is a franchise that's way more associated with the PlayStation brand, and it did 5 million there. So we could say 1 million optimistically on Xbox. PC, though, it could do quite a bit. A lot of the Final Fantasy games have sold very well on PC, so that is a big question mark element on how much that would boost remake sales. But if I had to bet, like if I had to make a bet, I would say Ring Fit Adventure will still outsell it. Yeah. Because even if Final Fantasy VII Remake ends up hitting 10 million across all platforms, which isn't necessarily impossible, right? We don't know, but it's not impossible with a PC version on the way. And I'm sure at some point PS5 enhancements, right? There's all those rumors floating around that they're going to announce enhancements for Final Fantasy VII Remake soon on PS5. So that should also probably boost sales. So even if it got to 10 million, though, I think Ring Fit's going to do well over that. So yeah, I would say Ring Fit probably going to outsell Lifetime Final Fantasy VII Remake. And then, Animal Crossing and Mario Kart's insane. Sean Torres, right below you, asks a very similar question and says, do you think Mario Kart 8 Deluxe and Animal Crossing can reach the 45 to 50 million units sold? Yes, absolutely. Yep. These games are both going to sell over 40 million with ease. Like, it's not even going to be a challenge, right? Mario Kart's already over 33 million. It only needs to sell 7 million more to be over 40. And Animal Crossing did 31 million in 9 months. So both of these are, because there's not going to be another Animal Crossing for a long time, right? I suspect there's going to be a new Mario Kart soon-ish. And when I say soon-ish, I would say the next 2 years, right? I would think by 2022, the end of 2022, there's probably going to be a new Mario Kart. But since it's so close to 40 million anyways, it's at 33. 40 million is going to be easy for both of these games, and 50 million plus is definitely in play, 100%. I would say especially for Animal Crossing, because Mario Kart, we just don't know when Mario Kart 9 is going to release, but it's probably not super far off. Like how I said, there's probably going to be a new Mario Kart in the next 2 years. I wouldn't expect a new Animal Crossing for another 5, right? I don't think we're going to get a new Animal Crossing until the Switch 2, right? I think this is, unless it's like a weird spin-off, they've done like some spin-off type games, but like a full-fledged Animal Crossing. New Horizons, I think, is going to be the only mainline Animal Crossing until we hit Switch 2. All right, we just had a super chat drop. Let me hit that super chat. We had 2 super chats. Timmer72299 with a 2 super chat. Thank you for your second super chat of the chat, Timmer. Thoughts on the ZeniMax EU situation? Yeah, so anyone that missed this, basically, the EU is going to basically vote on whether they are going to approve of the whole Bethesda and ZeniMax acquisition thing. You see this with big, gigantic, enormous purchases, right? Here's the thing. They're actually doing it so late. I don't think this is going down until like May. That is a very good sign that there's going to be like 0 issues with this, because Microsoft said that they assumed that this is going to be a locked in, done deal by summer. And May, I mean, you're right before summer anyways. Here's the thing. It's a giant purchase, but a lot of people don't realize this or don't really look at it right. Microsoft could go out and buy 3 more ZeniMax sized acquisitions, and they still would be nowhere close to a monopoly. Now, I'm not going to say that that's like a good situation for the industry or anything like that, Microsoft buying multiple publishers. But when you look at how big the gaming industry is, it's enormous. I mean, look at how giant Sony is, just with their first party, plus their giant console sales and their online platforms. When you look at Nintendo, look at the results Nintendo just posted, astronomical. When you look at EA, when you look at Take-Two, when you look at Tencent, when you look at Ubisoft, Capcom, Square Enix, mobile, you get what I'm saying. You could just go on and on and on and on. Microsoft is literally nowhere near monopoly type status yet, and if they went out and bought 3 more ZeniMax size purchases, they'd still be nowhere close to a monopoly situation. So there's a lot more that they can do. Oh, some people are saying it's March 5th. Sorry about that. Thank you, Reverse World. Thank you, Highlander, for the correction on that. But you get what I'm getting at, right? I know that people don't want to see the whole industry be consolidated, and I agree with that, right? I don't want to see everyone get purchased. But Microsoft's in no real risk here of running into law issues about acquiring too much. They're nowhere near that situation, y'all. I mean, like I said, there's a lot of very, very big players in this industry, so they're nowhere close. Everything should go through completely fine. Reverse World with a 5 super chat saying, this might sound odd, but do video game companies pay attention to YouTube views on their trailers? Seems like an obvious way to gauge interest. So Reverse World, 100%. And there's actually two ways I can tell you that. First of all, sometimes you see them outright come out and say it, right? Ubisoft famously, when I say famously, I should say to people like me who pay super close attention to this kind of stuff, they came out before Assassin's Creed Valhalla launched, and they were talking about how the reveal trailer for that game was the biggest of all time for Ubisoft. No trailer they had ever released got as many views so rapidly as Valhalla did. And what did that translate to? Assassin's Creed Valhalla was the biggest launch in the entire history of the Assassin's Creed franchise. So A, you have some companies just outright come and say it, and then B, this is going to sound kind of funny, but they comment, like, and follow me on Twitter because of it all the time. Whenever I share YouTube trailer views, so many devs that, like, if they're working on a game, like my tweets about it, comment on my tweets about it, saying, oh my goodness, we're so excited, this is doing great, and follow me because of it. You know, I have a ton of followers on Twitter that are developers and publishers. Tons, right? Probably, I would say probably, I mean, it could be as high as like 20% of my following is industry people. So, I mean, yes, they pay very close attention to this stuff. YouTube views and metrics and Google searches and things like this, they're very important ways of tracking how a game's going to perform. Now, it's not a one-to-one ratio, right? It's not one of those things that just because a game gets a huge amount of trailer views, it's automatically going to sell a ton. We have seen some cases where that's not necessarily the case. But by and large, if a game's doing huge YouTube views, if it's getting tons of Google searches, tons of likes and retweets, that's a very good sign if you're a publisher that a lot of people are taking interest in your game. So yeah, they definitely follow that. They definitely gauge that. And it's very important for their marketing. Timmer72299 just dropped a third super chat. Thank you so much, Timmer, with a 5 super chat saying, do you think the gaming industry should have its own version of the numbers.com, aka constantly reporting sales figures plus budgets for games? Timmer, I would love it. I am a big fan of as much transparency as possible. You know, before this whole pandemic started, I was a big follower of the box office, right, for movies, because that's public data, and I'm a nerd for this kind of stuff, right? I love seeing how stuff's performing, whether it's movies, whether it's video games, whether it's TV shows and streaming, right? I even pay attention to stuff like Netflix streaming numbers and Disney Plus subscribers and all this kind of stuff, right? I'm just a nerd for this kind of thing. So yeah, I would love it. I would love it. Unfortunately, though, the video game industry in particular likes to be very secretive about their numbers, right? I would say almost more than anyone, more than movies, more than just about anything. You know, movies, it's like most movie budgets are completely public. Most, you know, you get the weekend estimates for box office, you get the weekly estimates, the trades themselves, like the actual studios put out, hey, we did this much business this weekend. Video games are a lot more murky waters to try to get this data from. That's one reason why I started doing what I do on Twitter and YouTube, was to try to make this stuff more visible. So yeah, Timmer, I would love to see it. But it is going to be a challenge because the video game industry does not like numbers to be public. They hate it, actually. Well, and whenever I say they hate it, let me clarify. Developers do not. Like I was talking about earlier when I was saying a bunch of industry people follow me, I have devs straight up tell me all the time, thank you for what you do. Thank you for sharing this kind of info. Thank you for getting it out there. But publishers, right? The business side of the arm, not the creatives, they don't like it. They don't like it. Devs, they don't care. The people making the games, in fact, a lot of them are very interested in this as well. But the people that are writing the checks, that are cashing the checks, they don't like it out there. They just don't. All right, Kostas here. Hi, Benji. Do you think Morales' performance are performed well enough for Sony to pursue smaller games for other franchises like God of War and Horizon Zero Dawn? Could a smaller God of War game still outsell God of War 3 or older titles? Kostas, yes. Morales performed very well. There's all kinds of weird stuff out there about oh, Spidey did bad. Spidey didn't perform well. Dude, this is like way off base. I don't know where people are getting this from. Spider-Man Miles Morales sold great. It sold a lot. So anyone that's out there saying that, you're just wrong. Like, I hate to say that, but no, the game sold great. Did it sell as well as Spider-Man 2018? No, but did we expect it to? It's not Spider-Man 2, right? And Miles Morales, for as much as he has gained visibility, right? When you look at Into the Spider-Verse, the movie from Sony, when you look at this game, like, he's definitely become way more popular than he was even a few years ago. But is he Peter Parker in popularity? No, not even close, right? It's literally not even close. Look at how Into the Spider-Verse performed at the box office, which is well, and compare it to any of the big Spider-Man movies, right? The big ones. It's not close, right? Most people still think of Spider-Man as Peter Parker. So, did it sell well? Yes, absolutely. Was it a big enough success that Sony could do more of these? Yes, absolutely. Is it going to sell as well as Spider-Man 2018? No, not until we get to Spider-Man 2 are we going to see that kind of thing. But yeah, I definitely think it sold enough that Sony can justify it. The question is going to be, do they want to do that, right? Do they want to keep doing some more of these small in-between games? Personally, I love it. In fact, one of the reasons I loved Miles Morales is it didn't feel super padded, right? It felt like a shorter, really tight package that you could get through. The story felt very streamlined. I would love to see more of these. Yes, personally, I love it. The question is going to be if Sony feels it's worth it to, put resources behind these kind of projects, or just keep doing the big, giant, triple A every 5 years or 4 years type thing. Ryan Thompson saying, what are your thoughts on Drew Murray leaving the initiative? Yeah, this is a bummer. It looks like it's for personal reasons. I believe that his brother passed away. This is really sad. It's definitely a blow to the initiative. Drew Murray, from what I understand, not like insider stuff, just from like what, they've publicly talked about, was a huge, part of what's, happened with building the initiative, right? He's been a very core piece of what they're doing over there on Perfect Dark. So I would say it's definitely a bummer for the initiative, but the project is probably pretty far underway now, right? The initiative has been around for a few years. They've gotten to the point where they've officially announced their game. So I would say the core foundation for Perfect Dark and the initiative studio is essentially already there. So him leaving, definitely a bummer, but they're probably already well down the right path. So, not the end of the world for the studio. Had this happened like 6 months into building the game, then it could have been a bigger problem. But they probably know very well what direction they're headed with this game. So my thoughts go out to Drew Murray. I hope he, I hope that he has a much better personal situation, because it sounds like he's going through some hard times. So thoughts out to him. Hamish Lee Ford. Hey, Benji. Hope you're doing great. Thoughts on Mass Effect Legendary Edition trailer? I think it looks great. It looks amazing, dude. I got goosebumps whenever I watched the Mass Effect Legendary Edition trailer that came out today. If you haven't watched it, y'all, highly recommend you go watch the trailer. Those games mean a lot to me. I haven't played Mass Effect in quite some time, right? I mean, I played Andromeda, but I haven't played Mass Effect 1 through 3 in quite some time, literally because I've been waiting on a remaster. I've always been like, they have to remaster these games. They can't just abandon them. So I got goosebumps. I thought it looked amazing. I love that series so much. I am amped. I hope it sells really well. I hope people go out and really buy this. If you're someone who's never played the Mass Effect games, this is the package to get you started. It's going to have all 3 games of the original trilogy, 40 DLCs, right? All the different weapons and armor packs, all of the story expansions are included. They've improved the gameplay from Mass Effect 1, because as amazing as the story of Mass Effect 1 is, the gameplay does not hold up nowadays. I'm just going to be honest. If you play Mass Effect 1 right now, and you've never played a Mass Effect game, you might get a little bit of like a bad taste in your mouth because the story and the world is going to be amazing for you, but the gameplay is going to feel very archaic. So them updating that is great. Yeah, I am stoked. I am maximum stoked for this. I cannot wait. How much Lee Ford? Carl Dwyer saying hello. What is up, Carl? Split End 89, best mod in the business, saying I is a Benji bud. How about you? And then asking, so Stadia is dead, right? So let's talk about Stadia really quick. So basically, Google has announced that all first-party studios, right, their internal Stadia studios are shutting down. They are completely closing them. Kotaku reports that this is affecting around 150 developers. Kotaku also reported that multiple projects have been canceled, which makes sense, right? Those 150 people weren't doing nothing, right? If you have 150 internal staff, they're building something. So if you're letting all those people go, you're also canceling those projects. So multiple games canceled, 150 plus people potentially facing layoffs. Google said they're going to do what they can to try to find them different positions in the company. But to be realistic, for a lot of those people, they're not going to have positions in Google probably, right? Whenever you're talking about like the artists and things like this, some of the programmers might be able to find, different jobs in the company, but a lot of these people are probably going to get laid off. So I feel horrible for all of these devs. Very, very rough. And yeah, this is the beginning of the end for Stadia for me. They're going to try and spin it that the service itself is going to still keep going, that they're still going to work with other companies on the streaming service. But essentially, if you're not building your own games for this service, you're not going to have exclusive content for this service. Why are people going to pay for this service, right? Like, we've been talking about this on chat for some time. The future moving forward is exclusive content. Exclusive content is literally more important now than at any point in time in the history of the gaming industry. Whenever you start looking at subscriptions, when you start looking at ecosystems, right? You want people funneled into your ecosystem because people spend money in that ecosystem, whether it's buying games, buying DLC, spending, V-Bucks on Fortnite. You want people subscribed to your services, right? Your PS Now, your PS Plus, your Xbox Live, your Game Pass. Exclusive content is so important. So Stadia getting rid of that, I just don't know why, you would be involved in the Stadia service, right? I don't know why you would be willing to spend your money there, even if the tech's great, right? I'm not necessarily bashing the tech. I'm just saying the overall strategy. I believe this is the beginning of the end, Split End. Yep, I believe so. And I made a couple like kind of joke tweets about this, and I didn't mean this in a rude way, but man, Phil Harrison's track record the last decade is atrocious. It's bad, right? You all know me. I'm a really positive guy. But there's just no way to spin it. Phil Harrison has been getting top executive level positions, and he has repeatedly led to very bad outcomes, right? At least at the top level. I'm not saying he's not a nice guy. I don't know him. He could be the nicest guy in the world, right? And he may be a great businessman in other aspects, but it seems like when it's a top level position, when you look at some of the things that happened at Microsoft when he was there with Xbox, when you look at Stadia now, when you look at he was at Atari for like a year, it's just not a good run. It is not a good run at all for Phil Harrison. We just had 2 super chats drop. Let me hit those super chats really quick. Oh, 3 super chats. And the top one is Real Radic saying, Benji, do you have beef with Phil Harrison? Not at all. Not at all, Real Radic. I literally don't know Phil Harrison at all. And like I said, he might be the nicest guy in the world. It's just what I do, right, is I try to look at business, right? That's like my main thing. I talk about games in general. I literally love video games. But like the main thing people know me for is sales and business. And I mean, you can't ignore it. Phil Harrison's track record is bad. It's bad. Like it seems like he did some very good stuff at Sony, but since leaving Sony, I mean, there's no way to argue it's good. Like it's just bad thing after bad thing after bad thing from every company he goes to. So something is an issue there, right? I'm not saying everything is all his fault, right? I mean, you can't put all the blame on one person, but it's not one of those things where it's like he has tons of successes you can point to over the last decade. There's like almost none. There's almost none. And again, I'm not knocking his early PlayStation days because I know he was a huge part of the PlayStation brand, right? We're not talking about that. We're talking about since he left PlayStation. It's a bad run. It's a bad run. Benji with a 5 super chat saying, "Hi Benji, why does EA choose the remaster for Mass Effect instead of remake, as Capcom is doing with several RE games? Frostbite would have been dope." Actually, Benji, I'm going to be honest with you here. I'm kind of glad they're not doing a remake. And that might sound weird, but here's the thing. BioWare has already proven that they are stretched incredibly thin, and they have been a little bit too, what's the word I'm looking for here? BioWare's been a little bit too ambitious in some of their thoughts and attempts, right? That is one of the things that led to a lot of issues in Dragon Age Inquisition. Their scope was a lot bigger than what they could attain. There was all kinds of stuff in Dragon Age that they were originally planning on doing. You know, the areas changing drastically depending on your choices, like the actual areas of the maps, like really changing, plots changing depending on what changed in that specific zone, like all kinds of things like this. Mass Effect Andromeda also apparently had a very ambitious scope that messed things up. So, I'm kind of glad, right? They have a new Dragon Age game in the works. Anthem. Anthem's another one we can point to. Huge ambition that they just could not execute on. So, they already have multiple projects in the works. They got a brand new Dragon Age game. They got a brand new Mass Effect game in the works. So, just a nice quality remaster I prefer over a remake, to be perfectly frank with you. Because we're going to get all these games in one package. If you did remakes, you're going to be waiting years in between. These Mass Effect games are huge. To be honest, they're way bigger than any Resident Evil. No Resident Evil game is even close in scope to Mass Effect. Like, even the newest ones, Resident Evil 7, not even close to what Mass Effect's doing. So if you're doing a full remake of Mass Effect, you're going to be waiting years and years in between each edition if you're going to do a full high-quality remake. So you would never get those games all in one package. So I like having it in one package. They are still doing improvements. We're still getting 4K. We're getting 60 FPS on next-gen consoles. They are reworking character models. They are improving gameplay. So it's not like a low-level remaster. It's not like they literally just slapped 4K on it and they're done. They are reworking things. They've improved the character creator to give you more options on that. So I prefer this. Let them do a nice, solid remaster of the original 3, and then really focus on the next Dragon Age and the next Mass Effect, because those games cannot be bad. Okay, they cannot. BioWare, as we all know, I love BioWare, but they're in a tough situation. Anthem was a big financial failure for them overall, right? It launched pretty decent in sales, but had basically zero legs after that. Dragon Age Inquisition sold well, but is very mixed results around people. And then Mass Effect Andromeda, that almost killed the franchise in terms of both feedback from fans and sales. It wasn't a big seller. So they really need to make sure the next Dragon Age needs to be very good. The next Mass Effect needs to be very good. If they were also doing Mass Effect remakes on top of that, the studio would just be stretched way too thin. So I'm totally okay with this. I would have been bummed, Benji, like I said, if this was literally just 4K and that's it, like a really quote lazy port. But it's not. It's not. They are enhancing a lot of stuff in it. So, and then I know they also said if they switched to Unreal Engine 4, they'd have to rewrite the dialogue system, which if anyone's never played Mass Effect, the dialogue trees in that game are crazy, complex. Choices you make have big impacts later on. So it would have just been a huge undertaking, Benji. Ralph Muster with the 10 super chat. Thank you so much, Ralph. Good to see you. Saying, hi, Big B. What is up? Bloomberg have doubled down on their Switch Pro allegations yesterday. What's your take on the whole story? Ralph, I definitely think it's coming. I do think we're getting a new Switch revision. Now, some people are going to point. I want to make this pretty clear here because Nintendo's playing a little bit of cat and mouse here. So let's look at two different things. First of all, You just had Nintendo come out during the investor Q&A, and they said, and you need to look very closely at what they say here because it's going to kind of tip their hat on what they're doing. They said, and this isn't insider info, y'all. I'm going off of what's publicly available. So they said, whenever they were asked, they said, we have no new hardware announcements to make in the future, right? In the near future, there's not going to be any announcements. And then what they said is, we have the Monster Hunter Switch bundle launching. They put that in there. Okay, why did they put that in there? Because the Monster Hunter bundle is hitting this fiscal year, right? The fiscal year is going to run through the end of March. So Nintendo right now is going to be focused on the current fiscal year, right? Because they need to wrap this up in terms of what's going on with investors, what's going on with stock, all of that stuff. That stuff's all so volatile, as all of you know. They're going to be focusing this fiscal year. That's where Monster Hunter bundle is. They ain't going to be talking about something that's going to come out probably, I think, if this new revision's coming out, it's probably going to be alongside Breath of the Wild 2. And so I wouldn't expect it probably until late summer or fall, right? And that's if this thing is real. We don't know for sure, but I'm feeling very confident it is. So that's the first part. Nintendo has no reason to talk about this revision yet. In fact, if anything, all it will do is hurt them. And, they have so much momentum right now in sales. Why would you, in your current fiscal year, whenever a new console is not even going to launch until your next fiscal year, be like, oh yeah, yep. In 6 months, we're going to launch, a brand new revision. So no need to go out and buy that Monster Hunter bundle that we're about to drop and we hope to sell millions of units of, right? They're not going to do that. They're going to wait. And then next fiscal year, which is going to start in April, that's probably whenever you would hear something from them. So you have that whole situation there with the talking. Then you have like what David Gibson has pointed out, who David Gibson is excellent. I'm a big fan of David Gibson. Anyone that doesn't know who he is, he basically works out of Japan and he reports a lot on, Sony and Nintendo and things like this. He's great. Big fan of him. Super nice guy. And he made a great point I saw on Twitter where he was saying that, if you look, Nintendo is really like shorting quote quote their inventory. In other words, they're not building up like giant amounts of Switches like sitting in stores. Now, Nintendo's not having near the production issues that PS5 and Series X are. And there's a couple reasons for that. First of all, they're not using the latest, greatest cutting edge tech that is very hard to get right now because you have a lot of people competing for those parts, right? Switch is running on a bit older hardware. That manufacturing process isn't as in demand as those latest chips. So A, you have less competition for that hardware. And then B, they have supply chains and manufacturing chains well built up, right? Because the Switch has been out for years. So Switch isn't meeting the production issues that PS5 and Series X are. So theoretically, they could probably bulk up their inventory even more than they already are, right? And if you look, they're kind of just shipping as much as they can sell. Like ship enough, sell that batch, ship the next bunch, sell that batch. It's not one of those things where they're really building and building and building and building. And one reason you would do that is because you have a revision coming out, because you have brand new hardware that's going to hit and you don't want a ton of consoles sitting on shelves for whenever that new unit hits. So I am inclined to think, looking at these sorts of things, that yes, a revision is indeed on the way for the Switch. Whether that's going to be a Pro, whether that's going to be, just a slightly better of the Switch. There's rumors it has an OLED screen. I could actually very much see something like that. I don't know if it's going to have a huge graphics boost, but maybe it has a nice OLED screen on it, maybe a little bit better battery life, things like this. Who knows? But Ralph, it makes sense. Nintendo is known to refresh their hardware. They do it like crazy. Look at how many revisions the DS, the 3DS, etc. had. So yeah, Ralph, it's very likely. And I believe they're going to time it with Breath of the Wild. That is my guess. All right, 2 super chats just dropped. Reverse World with, I believe that's your second super chat, I believe. If so, thank you so much, Reverse World, with another 5. TV promos aren't as important as they used to be, but I think to reach the casual audience, Xbox needs to look at again. for Halo and Game Pass promotion. You know, that's a good point, Reverse World. And you do make a very good point. It's not as big a deal as it used to be, right? TV advertising used to be everything, right? Like, that was it. Before the internet became as ubiquitous and giant and as important as it is now, you know, it was really, you lived and died off radio advertising and TV advertising. And that has changed, and you have seen investment onto TV ads get dialed back. You do make a good point, though, that there is still a lot of casual audience that watches TV. I would say yes. That would be a nice target. I don't think it's one of those things like you have to necessarily double down on. They could still keep doing more just targeted online ads and things like this because so many people are online now. But it never hurts, right? It definitely never hurts. Here's where I would do it if I was them. Most of my advertising for TV would be done during sports, right? That's going to be where you're going to be hitting a lot of demographics that are more casual, but also fit like that demo that you're going to sell most of your consoles to, right? So, yeah, I would say during big NBA games, during big, soccer here in the U.S., but football games or American football games, that would really be, if I'm a console manufacturer, I'd be sticking my TV ads during sports games. They get high viewership, and you're going to get a lot of demographics that will go out and spend money. So, less, I would say, during like a sitcom, right? A regular TV series at 8 p.m., I wouldn't do that. But sports, yeah. Sports would be where I would bulk that up. Kevin Kanye here with a 5 super chat. Thank you so much, Kevin. Saying, great work as always, Benji. Thank you so much. What would you do to make fiscal year 21 bigger than fiscal year 20 for Nintendo if you were in charge? Ooh, this is a great question, Kevin, and really fun. Okay, so here's the thing. 21 is going to be a challenge to beat 20 in a lot of cases, right? So first of all, 20 had that crazy pandemic lockdown impact, right? Part of the reason video games were so huge this year was because of all the lockdowns. People couldn't go out, they weren't going to the park and playing. They weren't going to the movies on a Friday night. They weren't going and hanging out with friends at parties on the weekends, right? You needed something to do to pass time. And a lot of people that didn't traditionally game went out and bought consoles because you need something to do, right? You can't just sit and go stir crazy in your house all the time. So you saw a massive uptick across the board, whether it was Nintendo, whether it was PlayStation, whether it was Xbox, whether it was PC, right? Steam was hitting record concurrent user numbers. Xbox Live was hitting record people on Xbox Live, and same for PlayStation Network. I think you're going to see less of that in 21 because we do have a really high vaccine rollout starting. Now, the rollout has been semi-disastrous, right? It's been a lot slower than what we were all hoping for. But regardless, you are getting that vaccine out there. So that is going to slightly, we hope, improve the amount of impact that COVID's going to have this year, right? Fingers crossed, right? I'm sure we all want this over with. Every single one of us want to move on from this. So that's going to be the biggest hurdle, is just overcoming how big that was. But here's the thing, Kevin, Nintendo can have a much stronger release slate this year than they had last year. Last year, 2020 wasn't the best year, I don't think, for Nintendo software. Animal Crossing was enormous. You're not going to get a single game in 2021 that's as big as Animal Crossing was. Even if you get Breath of the Wild 2, it is not going to sell as much, right? Breath of the Wild has been an amazing seller. Over 20 million, the best-selling Zelda of all time. Even if Breath of the Wild 2 matches that, or is even slightly bigger, it's still not going to be as big as Animal Crossing. So you won't get one individual game out there that's as big, but you could have a much better overall lineup. And I think we already have some early indications that that is the fact, right? If you look at the first couple months of this year, it's already, I think, way better than what Nintendo started with last year outside of Animal Crossing. You've got stuff like Bravely Default 2 on the way, which, yes, is a smaller game, but it's a nice game. You've got Pokemon Snap in April, which I actually think is going to do very well. You've got Monster Hunter Rise, which is going to be utterly ginormous in Japan and I think do really well in the West. I'm expecting Monster Hunter Rise to be the second highest selling Monster Hunter title of all time, only behind Monster Hunter World. So you have that in there. You got Bowser's Fury, which looks a lot better than many of us expected, and Super Mario 3D World social metrics are tracking very well. So you see what I'm getting at. Their release lineup, even for this early part of the year, looks pretty darn strong. And then if you hit later in the year, if we get stuff like Breath of the Wild 2, if we get a revision, you start to look at it and you think, man, it could happen. As big as fiscal year 20 was, 21 being matching it or even better, not impossible. Not impossible at all. So here's my expectation, Kevin. I think in fiscal year 21, Nintendo will do a minimum, and this is a minimum, of 20 million units, right? I think there's almost no chance they do less than 20 million in the next fiscal year. Now, they could do a lot more. The biggest factors, I'm going to say, Kevin, to beat 21, you need Zelda. Zelda needs to be this year. You need a big, giant exclamation point on the year. We do have some really nice releases on the way. Like I just mentioned, all of those, but you don't have that big marquee Nintendo game to close it out. So Breath of the Wild 2, it needs to hit this year to beat 21, to beat 20 to have any chance. And I think they need a revision or a price drop. I think if it stays the exact same price, Switch, and there's no revision, right? We just keep the exact same Switch Lite $199, Switch $299, no Super Switch. I don't think they'll beat last year, okay? So those are going to be the two things. Zelda, price drop / new platform. One of those. Joseki with a 5 super chat. Thank you so much, Joseki. Mass Effect is great, but I played them on PC 10 plus times, and I want them on Nintendo Switch now. Thankfully, they didn't deny a late port today. Also, they ruined Eden Prime. So yeah, Eden Prime does have a little bit of a different look to it. Some people don't like the way the new one looks. Overall, I think what they've shown looks a lot better. But I totally get what you're saying, Joseki, that Eden Prime in particular has a different vibe to it. It does look different, right? It doesn't necessarily have like all the reds that you saw in the original Mass Effect, which gave it that really moody vibe. Okay, it looks a little bit more vibrant in the Legendary Edition. So that's going to be a taste thing. I totally understand people that don't like New Eden Prime, like they did the old one. And I could see this being on Switch, actually. EA has done this before where they've released late ports, and a lot of companies have in general, right? You saw Overwatch hit Switch eventually. You saw, The Witcher hit Switch, et cetera, et cetera. I think if this sells really well, Joseki, that there's a strong chance it does happen, okay? It's all, I think, partially going to come down to sales. If this is met like somewhat mediocre, I don't know that EA is going to put the resources behind also releasing a Switch version. But if they see that the Legendary Edition's out there selling tons of units, they have incentive to put that on Switch because they're going to be like, hey, this is performing great on platforms that it's essentially already been on, right? Already been on PlayStation, already been on Xbox, already been on PC. These are just, enhanced versions of it. Let's put it on Nintendo, which I believe got Mass Effect 3. But did that ever get, not Switch, but Nintendo, did they ever get Mass Effect 1 or 2, though? I can't remember. I thought I remembered Mass Effect 3 coming out on Wii U, but I could be wrong, but I'm pretty sure. So, yeah, I would say yes. If this sells well, you get a much stronger shot that this ends up on Switch as well. Awesome. Super chats are cleared for now. Thank you so much, everyone. Thank you for all the super chats. Let's get back to some free questions. Kieran Buckley saying, hi, Benji. Any news on the Medium pre-order numbers and how well do you see the game selling? So Kieran Buckley, we got some good news on the Medium. So essentially, Bloober Team has come out and said that day one sales have completely covered all marketing and development costs. So literally every unit that this game sells from now on is essentially going to be profit because they didn't just say just development because marketing is also another huge cost. They said it covered marketing and development. So the medium is good. It is already in the black. So from here on, essentially it's all profit, right? The medium only cost 7 million to make. I think it was 7 million euro. So it's a pretty, like, it's not a AAA game, right? The medium is an AA game. So I think it's been a definite success for them. I'm playing it right now, and I'll give you my thoughts really quick for anyone that hasn't played it. I'm close to the end of the medium. I am really enjoying it. This is also a game, if you look, some reviewers gave it as high as a 9. Some reviewers gave it like as low as a 2. And as someone playing this game, this is one of those cases I can 100% see both sides on, because your enjoyment of the medium is really going to come down to how you like the story. Like, seriously, because the gameplay mechanics are very thin, okay? This isn't a game with a ton of combat. This isn't a game with complex traversal. It is, in a lot of ways, almost a walking simulator with puzzles, okay? So there are some hiding sequences and things like this. There are some, light puzzles, that type of stuff, but it's nothing like super in-depth on gameplay at all. Gameplay I would describe as literally paper thin in a lot of ways. But it has a very awesome atmosphere. I love the atmosphere of this game. It oozes atmosphere. I really enjoy the story. The pacing, though, is a little slow at times, and I think there are certain segments of the game, I won't drop any spoilers, but there are segments of the game that I think drag on too long. I think they could have shortened certain segments. So right now, if I was to score this game, I'd probably give it like a 7.5, which is right around its critic average. And 7.5 is a good score, y'all. 7.5 doesn't mean I think this game is terrible. 7.5, very solid. I think Bloober gave a very solid baseline, and I would love to see them get a sequel to this. I really, really would, because I really like the story, really like the atmosphere. If they upped that budget, a little bit, you don't even have to go crazy. You don't even have to go AAA. It was 7 million euro. If you get that to 10 or 15 million euro, and you take all of the learning lessons from the original, I think that the medium 2 could be very good, very, very good. So overall, I think this has definitely been successful, Kieran. It's my favorite of the Bloober Team games that I've played, and things are looking good. Things are looking really good for the studio. Okay, I think I just saw multiple super chats drop. Let me hit those super chats really quick. Make sure I didn't miss any really quick. Nope, none missed. Just a whole bunch dropped at once. Thank you so much, everyone. Okay. Ralph Musser with a $9.99 super chat. Thank you so much, Ralph. Semi-random question. Where do you see Shin Megami Tensei 3 and 5 land in terms of sales at in the West? This is a great question, Ralph, and a tough one. It is tough. So, Persona has really increased in visibility and sales. And yes, I know Persona is not the same as Shin Megami Tensei, y'all. I know, you don't need to freak out and be like, Benji, they are different franchises. I know. But what I mean is there is a bit of a connection there. And I feel like the growing success of Persona is going to somewhat aid in Shin Megami Tensei as more people become more and more familiar with Atlas and all this kind of stuff. Where are they going to land in terms of sales? Do we have a release date on 5 yet? Do we? Did they even give a year? Let me see. I don't even think we have a year. Oh, it says early 2021. Switch install base is massive, which is going to aid it hugely. I could see Shin Megami Tensei 5 becoming the best selling of that franchise. I really could. Not higher than Persona. So, don't anyone expect that kind of thing. But I think that is possible. I think Shin Megami Tensei 5, if it's good, could very well become the best selling one, right? It's going to be an RPG. RPGs we have seen sell pretty dang strong on Switch. I think a lot of people like that portability factor for RPGs. Like I said, install base is massive. Japan in particular is crazy for the Switch. And Shin Megami Tensei being an Atlas game, probably going to do very well in Japan. Ralph, I'm going to make a gamble, and I'm going to say as long as it is good, right? Always quality is a huge factor here. Shin Megami Tensei 5, I'm going to predict is the best-selling ever of that series. Not bigger than Persona, but bigger than Shin Megami Tensei. Yeah, or previous ones of those games. I think so. I think a very strong chance. As I'm scrolling through, I'm seeing. I never know how to pronounce your username. Porshapper. I know I butchered it. Saying cheers, Benji. I never know how to pronounce that, man. It's so good to see you, though, dude. It's so good to see you. Cheers. Thanks for stopping by in chat. Ralph Muster here with the 5 saying, signal boosting Akbar's interesting question from 10 minutes ago. Ooh, that's very nice of you, Ralph. Let me scroll up. What did Akbar ask? Let me see. I think it's this one right here. Ralph, that was really nice of you to use a super chat to boost someone else. Shout out to Ralph, y'all. That is very awesome of you. Like I said, hitting the free questions sometimes is a bit of a challenge. Hitting all of them. Akbar here saying, do you think Microsoft will max synergy with their studios in the future? Example, streamline tools / create asset libraries to be less dependent on Unreal Engine and prefer their own engines instead. Akbar, this is a fascinating question, and I see why Ralph boosted this, because this is a very interesting question. Okay, let me address, let me give some context here first for people that don't have it. So we see this regularly in the industry, right? For example, Sony uses a lot of their own engines, right? Naughty Dog's got their own engine. You see God of War. We actually don't even think ever got a name of what that engine is, but God of War's on some kind of engine that seems to be proprietary, right? Guerrilla has their own engine. Death Stranding, which isn't a Sony studio, but was a PlayStation exclusive, right? And in terms of consoles, used Guerrilla's engine. So PlayStation, while we have seen them experiment with Unreal Engine, right? Days Gone, for example, in general, they clearly like to use their own engines. And a big part of that is going to be an Insomniac, right? Insomniac has their own engine. So you're not paying anything, right? If it's your own internal engine, yes, you're paying the whole R&D cost of creating it, but once you've got it, there's no licensing fees, there's no payouts. It's literally your engine, so you do whatever you want with it, right? And one of the benefits potentially is like if it's a studio and it's your own engine, all the ins and outs to the nth degree, right? You completely know how to maximize that in every way, shape, and form because it is your own engine. Unreal Engine, being a third-party tool is going to be a lot more broad, and it is going to be, take a little bit more work to figure out how to fully optimize and max it out. Now, Unreal Engine is a very simple, and when I say simple, all game development's hard, but for a third-party engine, it is known as being very accessible, very quote-quote easy to use, and Epic does a lot to help people with that. But you are going to get a little more squeeze out and expertise in maximizing on your own engine that every single bit of code inside and out on. EA does this with a lot of their games with Frostbite, etc., etc. So that's the reasons why you see studios really like to use their own engines, oftentimes. Not always. You have Unreal Engine becoming super popular, but, you see a lot of it. Now, will Microsoft do this? You are seeing them start to have a lot of engines that they own, right? You have Halo's new engine, Slipspace, I believe it's called, or Slipstream, whatever that is. Now you have them buying Bethesda. So that means they have id Tech. And y'all, I tweeted this a while ago back when they were doing this acquisition, and I think it's very worth noting. So I don't always talk about who likes my tweets. I can tell you, I have found stuff out just from tweeting stuff and certain people liking a tweet because sometimes devs need to be careful what they like, right? Because it's kind of a dead giveaway. Like Okay. I'm not going to name any examples, but there's times I've tweeted things and someone working at a studio or something like that liked the tweet. And I was like, oh, I was just spitballing, but thanks. One example of this, and I'm not saying it's a lock-in or anything, but back whenever this whole Bethesda acquisition thing first started happening, I tweeted out and I said, hey, Microsoft owns id Tech, and it's like one of the most impressive engines out there. I was like, this engine runs amazing. I mean, the performance it got even on Xbox One X for Doom Eternal, I mean, that game ran amazingly, looked gorgeous. I was like, man, it would be really interesting to see other Microsoft studios use this, and Aaron Greenberg liked the tweet. So I know Aaron Greenberg's just the marketing guy over there. You know, he's in charge of marketing. He's a huge person, right? But I'm just saying, I think Microsoft is definitely looking at that, and probably I would be very surprised if you don't see id Tech get used at some studios. Yeah. But Microsoft does seem to really like Unreal Engine, so I don't think you're going to ever see that go away, Akbar. I think you will see some utilization of some of their tech across studios, but I don't think they're going to abandon Unreal Engine because their teams seem to really like it. Like a lot of their teams use Unreal Engine. So, yeah, I don't think you'll see that go completely away. I just don't think so. All right, Ralph Muster with a 10 super chat. Thank you so much, Ralph. Oh, no, I hit that one. And that was the signal boosting one. Hit that one as well. Timmer72299 with a 10 super chat. Thank you so much, Timmer. I think that was your third super chat. Holy cow. Do you think ZeniMax CEO became/will become a billionaire when the ZeniMax Microsoft deal is done? Because we don't know how much he got of the $7.5 billion, and Microsoft said he is not resigning. Probably, Timmer. Probably. Because you got to think that the ZeniMax CEO already had a lot of money, right? It's not like he was poor and then sold this and now he's going to be rich, right? He was already rich, and then they sold this for $7.5 billion. So you know he got at least a chunk of that. I would say yes. I would say it's very, very, very likely the CEO of ZeniMax is about to become a billionaire. And that's probably very attractive whenever they were shopping to sell off ZeniMax, right? I'm sure if you're in his position and you can become a billionaire, you're like, hey, this don't sound half bad. So I would say, yeah, Timmer. I would rate it as very extremely likely that he is about to become a billionaire. Yep. Benji here with the 5 super chat. Benji, why hardware prices are not dropping? Switch has been at $300 for 4 years. The PS4 is hard to find below $350. Will next gen stay at $500? This was one thing Microsoft talked about whenever they were talking about why they made the Series S. And literally, that was one thing Phil Spencer himself said. He said it's becoming harder and harder to do those big price drops because tech, you're not seeing like giant cost reductions. You are seeing some of that, and I believe it was AMD or Sony, or it might have even been Microsoft. It was back during Hot Chips, and one of them put out a whole graph really detailing about how much cost has slowed compared to the past, right? Things like RAM and things like this used to, within very short time periods, like drop half in cost of production. And now, while they are still going down with time, that's happening much slower. And then you had the whole pandemic hit, which drove everything crazy, right? The pandemic really hurt manufacturing. It really hurt shipping. It really hurt logistics. So that made things even more of a challenge to bring prices down. Then you have the giant amount of competition in tech for the 7 nanometer process. It's insane. You have giant beasts like Apple bidding on some of the very same similar parts that people like Microsoft or Nvidia or, on and on. They're all bidding essentially on like the same stuff. So that's also driving prices up. So yeah, Benji, I would say, will you see price drops? Definitely, but you will see them much less commonly. Yep, much less commonly. Much less. It used to be a console would be like, launch at a certain price and it would be half that price within, let's say, 3 or 4 years or something like that. I think that's done and over. Done and over. I don't know that you'll ever see the PS5 and Series X, for example, at $250, unless it's like a discontinuing thing, right? Like, all right, everything's discontinued, flash sale, we're going on to PS6 and Xbox Series Z or whatever it's going to be, right? Yeah, the big, gigantic, significant price drops, I think, are a thing of the past, right? You will see them come down like $100 eventually. That will happen. I'd be shocked if you see the big 250 half off what they launched at. I don't think so. Plastic Hearts Podcast with a 10 super chat. Thank you so much. Saying, Benji boy, what's the update on the new pod? Also, are DMs the best way for podcasters to submit to be on? Don't want to shoot my shot here, but also shooting my shot here. Plastic Hearts, definitely shoot your shot. So I am notoriously, I'm going to be honest here with you, terrible about getting back to DMs. I'm bad. That is one thing I really need to improve on, okay? I need to really improve on that. I am so bad at getting back to DMs. So Plastic Hearts Podcast, if you have DM'd me, I apologize. I'll dive into the Twitter DMs like soon after this. I'm getting ready and going to work right after chat. So I can't promise I'm going to get to your DM like immediately. I will get to it, I promise, in like the next day. I need to go through my DMs. My DMs build up like crazy, y'all. Crazy. My Twitter is a lot bigger than my YouTube, and this isn't an excuse, right? I am outright bad at it, but I think I have like 18,000 followers or something on Twitter, so I get a lot of freaking DMs, and to be honest, a lot of them are mean. A lot of them are nice, but you also get some weird people in your DMs, right? So I kind of like try to set aside mind blocks for like, okay, every like couple weeks I'm going to sit down and really dig through my DMs and really block people that send me weird stuff and, you know, respond to the nice people. So it can take a little bit. So I promise, Plastic Hearts, I will set aside a DM day here probably like tomorrow. Okay. I'll probably do that. And in terms of the podcast, yeah, I tweeted that I was going to do a podcast, and then I got super busy. At some point, a podcast is coming. I can't promise when. Plastic Hearts, I'd love to have you on it. You're super nice here and super supportive of the channel. So definitely shoot your shot. At some point, there will be a podcast. It's just I'm juggling so much stuff. It's kind of hard. Splendid89 says he is bad and I'm his mod. LOL. Yeah. Splendid's right. I'm bad, y'all. I'm bad. I am bad about DMs, okay? I am really bad. I'm sorry. I need to work on that this year. I absolutely need to work on it. Okay. Well, how long have we been going? 1 hour and 7 minutes. I'm going to still go. I like to go 1 hour and a half. So we still got like 20 minutes, y'all. So I'm going to still hit some questions. Don't worry. I'm going to still hit a bunch. Thank you for an awesome chat. This is where I'm going to drop the annoying part, the stuff I don't like to do. But if you could subscribe to the channel, if you're not yet, I would greatly appreciate it. We're trying to get to 3,000 subs here soon. Not super far away. We're at like 2,700. So we're not super far away from 3K. So subscribe if you have not yet. Let your friends know. And then like the video if you like doing these chats. Helps the algorithm. Helps people find my channel. So yeah, there's that annoying little spiel. And then I'll get back to questions, y'all. Batwing. Hello, Benji. With Insomniac having over 4 teams, do you think they're working on Resistance or Sunset Overdrive 2? Or do you think the teams besides Spidey and Ratchet will focus on new IPs? Great question, Batwing. One thing we have talked about on this chat before is how, you know, Insomniac are like the kings of like juggling multiple projects at once, right? We've talked about this in the past. They were juggling multiple Spider-Man games at the same time, Ratchet games, all kinds of stuff, right? They are supremely talented at that. Here's my guess. I think Insomniac, if PSVR 2 is going to be a thing, and I think it is, I would not be shocked at all if Insomniac is currently working on a VR game for PSVR 2. I could very well see that. Insomniac has made multiple VR projects, including some very good ones, y'all. So that was one thing I thought back when Sony first acquired Insomniac. Yeah, Spidey's amazing, and it's a massive seller, and nothing that they'll make on VR will be able to match that in sales. But what a boon that is if Sony is going to continue to pursue VR, because Insomniac's a studio with a history of making VR games, so they already have that, right? It's not like a team that's tackling VR for the first time and really has to learn the ropes. They know VR. They've made VR games, and it's also a high-quality studio. So Batwing, that's kind of my guess. My guess right now, and it's no insider info, is Spidey 2. We all know that. I mean, that's a lock. And Ratchet and Clank, obviously. Sunset Overdrive seems very unlikely to me. That game didn't sell well, and I know that they have the IP rights now, but it just didn't sell well. It was a great game, but I'd be surprised if they returned to that. Resistance would be amazing. I know a lot of people want Resistance to come back, whether it's a new game or a remake. I'm less bullish on that, but that would be sick. That would be amazing if they made a new Resistance game. But I'm betting that they have some kind of VR project in the works, as long as PSVR 2 is going to be a thing. Sounds PP7. What did you make of the new info regarding the Bond game? Stoked for it. Sounds awesome. And what sort of gameplay are you hoping for? And since it's confirmed to be separate from the films, should they go with a black Bond? Ooh, that's interesting. I know a lot of people have wanted to see a black James Bond, right? There's been a lot of people really pushing for Idris Elba to become a James Bond, which actually, I mean, dude, you want to talk about a good actor for Bond. I think he would kill it. So I would love to see that. For me, Black Bond would be sweet. It's not one of those things that I'm like dead set on. But I mean, I would love it, right? It's one of those things, whatever the creative process over there is, whatever they want to do, I want to let them do that. Black Bond would be very cool. I'd be completely open and stoked to see it. And in terms of gameplay, what are you hoping for? You know, one thing that we haven't really seen a lot in Bond games that I would actually really like to see, I would love to see a pretty like in-depth dialogue system, right? So much of James Bond is the action, right, in games, and I totally get that. But if you watch the movies, I mean, a huge chunk of any James Bond movie is his wit. It's his banter. It's how he's talking his way through situations. It's how he's learning information from talking to people. I would love to see a James Bond game really tackle that. Have all the sweet action, the espionage, the stealth. Keep all of that in. That is all a huge part of Bond and what makes a fun game. But if you don't really explore his personality and how he's able to get his info and how he's able to disarm, you know, his enemies, even without necessarily always disarming them physically, sometimes just using his mind, his wit, his banter. I would love to see some more of that, right? I would really, really like to see that because I feel like that's an element that's missing from a lot of Bond games. So yeah, a pretty cool dialogue system I think would be the coolest addition they could do. I think we just had a super chat drop. Plastic Hearts with another 5 super chat. Thank you for your second super chat, Plastic Hearts. Thoughts on WB Games copywriting the Nemesis system from the Shadows of Mordor / War Games? Such a dope system. Sucks to see it locked to one series. Oh yeah, I love the Nemesis system, right? That was one of the coolest things that came out of last gen. Even if those games themselves weren't perfect, I liked both of them. But they weren't like, I would say they weren't like universally praised games. But the Nemesis system in particular was just so cool, so interesting, the implementation, and I feel like underutilized, especially at WB, right? There's all kinds of cool stuff they could do with it. If they own the copyright, why have Batman games not utilized a form of this? I'm not saying it has to be identical, but like some of their Batman series games could be very cool with this. Different thugs and villains, right? That like get to know you. They come back if you beat them. And, you know, just like what we saw in Mordor, it's shocking to me that you haven't seen WB utilize that more. It's really just been locked into the, Shadow of Mordor and War Games. Here's my thought. I think they're going to make another Lord of the Rings game, right? Why would you not? And I wonder, though, if it's going to be a Mordor/war game or just a new game set in the Lord of the Rings universe, but utilizing still that Nemesis system. I could completely see that. Either way, there's some kind of Lord of the Rings game coming from WB. There's just like no way you don't, especially with the TV series on the way from Amazon. That's probably going to be huge. It's still one of the most beloved IPs like of all time, right? I mean, Lord of the Rings is always huge, no matter the decade. So there's definitely going to be some kind of Lord of the Rings, but who knows what. But I think it probably will still utilize that Nemesis system, even if it's not set in Mordor at all, right? Which I hope it's not. There's so many other cool locations in Lord of the Rings. Let's leave Mordor behind, right? We had 2 games that really explored that. Let's go somewhere completely different, right? Let's see some of where the elves are and the dwarves. Like, there's so many cool areas they could go that have nothing to do with Mordor. All right. Cody Thompson. There's a rumor that Microsoft will acquire a Bethesda-level acquisition. Which ones do you think Microsoft will acquire? Okay, so there seems to be some indication that this is like actually legit, right? I believe it was Brad Sams, and if I am speaking incorrectly here, I apologize. The other rumor started from Game Rant, maybe? I can't remember. I can't remember the exact publication that published this first. But basically, they published the story that, yes, Microsoft soon will be acquiring someone that's another Bethesda-level acquisition. So another huge purchase. And then Brad Sams, who is known for being, an insider when it comes to Microsoft, right? Like an actual legit journalist insider. I'm not talking about like a random person on forums who knows who they are, right? Posting under an alias. Like, he's someone that is literally associated with reporting on Microsoft. He had tweeted out basically supporting this, saying like, yeah, that's the word on the street. So I think it's probably real, right? There's no reason to think Microsoft would just stop acquiring people. In fact, Satya Nadella, the CEO, basically flat out said they're going to acquire more people. Like, he didn't even subtly hint at it. He was like, yeah, Bethesda acquisition was sweet. We're going to look for more. like he said that a couple months ago. So, I mean, I'm thinking it's real. Now, who that will be is a big question. Let's completely knock off the table the people that are theorizing this could be EA, Take-Two, Activision, one of the giant players. Those companies are way bigger than Bethesda in cost, right? Is it impossible to acquire those companies? No, but that's not a Bethesda level acquisition. That is a much bigger level of acquisition, right? And when you look at the cost it would cost to buy those companies, we're talking tens of billions. When I say tens, I mean plurally. I don't mean 10 billion. I mean 30, 40, 50, whatever. Tens of billions of dollars to acquire those. Whereas ZeniMax, they got for like 7.5, right? So less than $10 billion. So you have to look at ones that would be comparable to that, right? The ones that would be comparable would be someone like a Capcom, someone like a Sega, someone even like a Ubisoft. Ubisoft's market cap is above 7.5 billion, but it's not like crazy, right? I think last I checked, they were at 9 point something billion. So even Ubisoft is somewhere in there. So you'd be looking somewhat more like that, right? Which would still be giant industry shaking. Sega and Capcom seem like long shots to me coming out of Japan, right? That would be tough. We all know that acquiring Japanese companies whenever you're an overseas company is more challenging. Not impossible, but more challenging. But you get what I'm saying. It would be someone more like that than an EA, Activision, or Take-Two. So who it's going to be, I don't know. Embracer Group is another one that would be interesting. THQ Nordic, basically. Embracer Group, THQ Nordic. That would be one that's potentially on the table. Someone like that. That's going to be more the range. Reverse World saying this live stream is brought to you by Lady Demetriou. I don't even know how to pronounce that yet. Yeah, how funny is that? And JCat saying, what's up? What is up, JCat? Yeah, the internet has fallen in love with the big lady from Resident Evil 8. Y'all, she's almost 10 feet tall. If you missed that, Capcom confirmed she's almost 10 freaking feet tall. She's huge. Huge. She's so big she would make NBA players seem short. All right, I'm going to be a little selective right now because we're going down to the last 10 minutes of chat. So I'm going to be a little picky for this last 10 minutes. Probably going to be picking out some Nintendo questions since we haven't had a ton on that. We have had some, but not a ton. Oh, we haven't hit on MLB yet, and that's in my thing. So actually, Samuel told Bear, great to see Samuel here. Always awesome to see Samuel. And he's asking about MLB. So yes, let's hit MLB, right? We did almost this whole chat without talking about it. I thought there would have been a lot of questions about this. Okay. Samuel told Bear, hey Benji, with MLB on Xbox, how well do you think it sells? Also, does it seem a little strange it's only coming to Xbox as well and not PC/Switch? Okay, first, let's talk about how I think it's going to sell and why I think this really makes sense for MLB and for Sony San Diego. They're about to be making a lot of money. Okay, even if we go conservative here, right? Even if we say that MLB only sells 1 million, right? 1 or 2 million on Xbox. Okay, let's go conservative because it's going to sell at least 1 million. I can tell you that right now. I can just straight up tell you it's going to sell at least 1 million. Probably even over that. I could easily see 2 million plus. But like I said, let's play it safe. You're still looking at, with that and microtransactions from people spending, I mean, you're looking at a minimum of 100 million in revenue every year being added from coming to Xbox. Okay, whenever you're going to factor in 1 to 2 million sales plus DLC, right? Doesn't MLB have like their own version of essentially, online spend for their microtransactions? I know it's not near as bad as like some of the stuff that EA does with Ultimate Team, but I'm pretty sure you can't spend money on the online mode somehow. Yeah, I mean, you're looking at an additional, and that's an every year thing, right? MLB is every single year. You're adding at least 100 million in revenue every single year, right? So it's great. It's great for the MLB. It's great for Sony San Diego. San Diego is about to be making a lot of money. And I see some people really upset about this. Here's the deal. I'm not someone that console wars or anything like that. I could see getting upset if like a hardcore exclusive goes multi-platform, like that's a first party, right? Let's say something crazy happened here and Horizon Zero or Forbidden West was on Xbox. I could actually see why people would freak out about that, because you do kind of want to feel like when you buy into a platform, you're buying into those exclusives. It's part of why you buy the platform. I actually totally get why people like exclusives and really like to support them and things like this. But this is a sports game, y'all. Every single other sports game is multi-platform, right? Like literally baseball was like the last one that wasn't. And yeah, there was a baseball game, but people consider the show the definitive baseball game, right? There was like RBI baseball. It's not close in quality. So this does not hurt PlayStation going multi-platform. People should not freak out about that. In fact, if anything, it's going to make one of Sony's studios even more successful. It's a sports title. It's great. It's great for the MLB. It's great for Sony. And you're going to be adding 100 million plus revenue every single year for the foreseeable future. Second part, why is it just Xbox and not PC and Switch? I suspect because this is probably the first year that this is happening. And keep in mind that, Sony San Diego would have never worked on any other platforms, right? They're a Sony company. They would have been doing some PC stuff because you develop games essentially on PC. You have the dev kit there for optimization and finishing out and all that kind of stuff. But a lot of your work developing game is done on a PC. So yeah, I mean, clearly they have PC experience. But whenever you're going to do a full-on launch on PC, you have to support such a giant range of hardware. that you don't have to on console. And Switch, they would have never worked with a Nintendo ecosystem, right? They are a Sony studio. So I think Xbox was probably the platform they felt like it was going to sell the most on outside of PlayStation. So to prioritize that for the very first year of going multi-platform, they're doing stuff like crossplay. So I think you probably will see PC and Switch down the road, but probably for this first year, since they're expanding for the first time to other platforms, they really want to make sure they make that Xbox version good. And of course, the Sony version will definitely be good because their track record for the show is amazing. But I think that's the main reason, Samuel. You'll probably see PC and Switch in like 2022 or 2023. Oh, Brad Davis, good to see you in chat, Brad. Saying Animal Crossing is COVID pop culture now. Amazing sales. Yeah, that's the truth, isn't it, Brad? That is the truth. Yeah, Animal Crossing is, wow. It is wow. 31 million in a year, y'all. It is astronomical. And whenever we say a year, that's a calendar year. It was less than a full, actual year. 1 in 12 months is essentially 9 months. Mind-blowing. Mind-blowing. Man, there are so many good questions still, and I'm running out of time. I'm looking at, there are some great questions still in chat. Holy cow. Pongsol, Benji, with the continued astronomical sales for Nintendo, does this push out the date for a potential new Nintendo system? That is a fascinating question, Pong. Here's the deal. If you're Nintendo, you're definitely not in a rush. Wow, you're not in a rush. You have built up such a massive install base. Y'all, they're at 80 million in less than 4 years, right? This was as of the end of December. So quite a bit less. Whenever I say quite a bit, you have to put it in perspective. But essentially 3 months less than hitting that 4-year mark, right? January sales weren't included in this, and obviously February, March, not yet. So you built up 80 million so quickly. You're not going to be in any rush to leave that 80 million plus behind. And they're going to be at 100 million, like I said, by the end of the next fiscal year. Okay? Like I said, their next fiscal year, the minimum I expect them to do is 20 million. They're at 80 million, and this fiscal year's not over with yet. So you can add a couple more million here on the end over that. So they're going to be over 100 million, and they're going to be over the Wii by, March of 2022. 100 million people in less than 5 years, right? Once we hit that point, you're going to be under 5. You're not going to be in any rush to just be like, okay, sweet, we built up all that install base super, super fast. We have all these people to sell games to. Let's put out a Switch 2, right? You're not going to want to do that. They are going to have a Switch 2. Obviously, that will be a thing that happens. But Pong, I actually think, I think this could push the Switch further out, the Switch 2 successor. And this makes it even more why it would make sense to have the Switch Pro or the Super Switch or whatever you want to call it. If you could extend out this Switch generation a little bit longer, their momentum is already so strong. But in terms of tech, right, not feeling super old, still having people be able to buy Switches in the next 2 to 3 years and feel like they're pretty solid systems and not ultra outdated, putting that Super Switch or Pro on the market, I think so. Pong, I extend this generation if I'm Nintendo, if possible. We're in 2021 now. I would not be looking at putting out a Switch 2 before 2023 at the earliest, right? And I think we all think that anyways, right? That's not super early. I'm just saying at the absolute earliest I would do is 2023. And if you could push that to 2024, maybe, right? Because 2021, clearly there's zero chance of a Switch 2. 2022, you get into maybe, because you would be up at that point approaching the 6-year mark by the end of it. But I still wouldn't, right? I would still do 2024. I would not do one before that. Okay, I'm going to hit one more question, then I got to call it a chat because I have to go to work. I wish I could do this chat for longer, but I literally can't. So let me pull out one more. Let me scroll down. I'm going to pull something from towards the bottom. Okay, I'm going to do a quick funny one from Kay, and then I'm going to do a good one. Kay says, Benji, why don't you have the quote unquote wife beater, also known as a tank top, shirt on today. Is everything okay? So Kay, it's winter time right here. I'm in the tanks less right now. Right now it's more t-shirt weather, even when I'm indoors, because it is pretty cold where I live right now. Don't worry though, once it's summer, we're going to be suns out, guns out. We're going to be tank tops all summer long, baby. I've been lifting really hard the last couple of weeks. So the gains will be coming in fast and furious. So hopefully by the time we hit that June and July, I'll be pretty jacked, hopefully, right? That's the goal. That is the goal. Okay, one serious question, and then we got to call the chat. One serious one. Oh, Alex Bailey saying hadn't been able to attend for a while. It's good to see you, Alex. Great to see you, Alex. Saying hoping you and the family are well. Doing great. Doing great. Good to see you, Alex. Yeah, I haven't seen you live in a little while. Okay. Sorry, I need to hurry up and pick one last one. There's just tons in chat still. I saw one that was really good. Here we go. This is one I really like. I'm going to close out with this one. HDWJNNEP gets the last question here. Hey, Benji, which publishers do you expect to grow over the next generation? This is a fun question. Who will be the biggest publisher by 2030? Okay, here's one that people are not going to like to hear, but it's going to happen. Tencent. That is right. Tencent is going to grow over the next generation, y'all. I know a lot of people aren't going to like to hear that because Tencent isn't a company that a lot of people look favorably on. But Tencent has a ton of resources. They are out there making acquisitions. I think they are one of the companies people need to be worried about, quote, quote, in terms of going out and buying studios, right? Everyone's talking about Sony and Microsoft. Y'all, Tencent is going to be out there buying just like Sony and Microsoft are. So Tencent. We already know that they're going to get more involved in console development. Right now, a lot of their stuff is through mobile and things like that, but they have outright said that they are moving more into the console space. So Tencent's going to be really big. They're really going to grow over this next generation, and do not be shocked at all if they go out there and they make some significant acquisitions in terms of buying up studios. It's going to happen. So that is one. I would say WB Games. I think WB Games is one that you can definitely expect to see growth with over the next gen. They already have massive successes in the Batman franchise, as well as, of course, Mortal Kombat and Injustice. But I think you're going to continue to see that to grow. Adding Harry Potter to that rotation is going to be big. The metrics on social that the Harry Potter Hogwarts Legacy announcement generated were gigantic. Huge, in fact, like shockingly giant. So expect Hogwarts Legacy, as long as it's good, to be enormous. They have other brands that can continue to grow, right? Looks like we're gonna see more spin-off stuff from the Batman universe. We've got stuff like Suicide Squad on the way. So WB is another one I would definitely keep my eye on. NetherRealm is a fantastic studio, so they can always pump out quality. So Tencent's gonna be a big one. WB is going to be a big one. THQ Nordic, Embracer, they're going to be a big one. They have made so many acquisitions in terms of, smaller teams, as well as bulking up like the amount of IP they own, right? We make jokes. They've bought like 20 million IP, it seems like. That's another one that's going to grow. Focus Interactive is another one that you're going to see grow. They're a small time publisher right now, but I expect to see them continue to grow. Devolver Digital with tons of indies. I mean, I could go on and on, right? You're going to see a lot of growth. The next decade, going to 2030, we're going to see a ton of growth across the board. Gaming is thriving. Gaming is as big or bigger than it's ever been in terms of money. So you're going to see a lot, but that's a few off the top of my head. In terms of who's going to be the biggest publisher by 2030, oh my goodness, this is hard. Because you're talking a decade, right? So much can change in a decade. I mean, it's going to sound boring, but it's probably going to be, if we're talking third party, it's probably going to be EA, Take-Two, or Activision. I know that's the boring answer, but there's a reason these companies are so utterly gigantic already, right? They sell a lot of games and they make a lot of freaking money. I would be shocked to see someone pass them, right? I'd be very surprised if Ubisoft gets bigger than them in the next 10 years. I'd be surprised if, WB or any of the other ones I mentioned. I'd be surprised if you see them get bigger. If we're talking strictly consoles and PC for publishing, it's probably going to be EA, Take-Two, or Activision. Like the big three. It's probably going to stay one of those. Okay, everyone. I got to call the chat there. Thank you so much. Thank you for all the super chats. Thank you for all of the awesome questions. I love doing these. These are my favorite thing every single week. I got to go to work. Subscribe to the channel so we can get to 3,000 soon. Like the video so people can discover it through the algorithm. And I will see you soon, everyone. Stay safe. Play some games. I will catch you next time either on Twitter, right? That's where I'm most active, or I'm going to see you here on YouTube during the next live chat. Everyone, we'll be back next week. We're here every single week. So if I miss your question and it's a really good one, save it. We'll be back next week, everyone. All right, everyone. I am out. See ya. Bye. Bye, 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 bye.